Well, Max, Stephen A., I always say it's a difference between being popular and powerful. Michael Jordan is powerful, one of the most iconic figures in the world, in history, right? And when you think about the power that he has just on the black and African American community alone, it speaks volumes. And what Michael Jordan could do is he could almost play like a mediator in between with relationships with the players and owners. For him being a former player and dealing with owners as being that guy, and having to deal with ownership from a player perspective and then translating it over, now being the owner, he could relate in both areas. And as like Max said, being an African-American majority owner, he could hold a lot of weight because he could go in there and speak to these owners and say, hey, this is what the players want, this is what they mean. And kudos to Mike, because ever since the George Floyd situation happened, the murder of George Floyd, God rest his soul, MJ has done a tremendous job of standing on the front line of NBA ownership. I think he was the first person out of any sports in America to stand on the front line. So with that being said, he could play a major factor with between the players and the ownership as far as getting something done and players, getting what they want to accomplish.
The thing about it is that because of the absence of success that he has enjoyed as an owner in the National Basketball Association for a small market team like the Charlotte Hornets, I think people have failed to appreciate Michael Jordan in the fashion that they should, to the level that they should. We appreciate him as a player. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time in my eyes and Max's eyes, even though I've heard you say some things about LeBron. Kendrick, it's not like you disrespected the man, Michael Jordan. But the bottom line is, separate and apart from his excellence, his greatness as a basketball player, he is vastly underappreciated for the contribution that he has made to society. When you consider this black man, this brother, that is an owner, the first majority owner, essentially. Not really the first because it was Bob Johnson. He's the second. But think about that for a second here. Michael Jordan is in the room talking to these owners. And if you know anything about him, like myself, Wilbon, and so many others that have been communicating with him for years because we know him a little bit. They know him a hell of a lot better than me, of course. This man will let you know where he stands and how he feels. And more importantly, what he's not going to do is get in a room and forget his blackness, particularly when it comes to his role as the chairman of the Labor Relations Committee. And, oh, by the way, somebody who's directly communicating with some of these players. This man knows what it is like to be black, regardless of the money, the riches, and the fame that he has had and the manner in which he was treated. He is still a black man. Let's not forget his father, God rest his soul, was murdered. This man has endured an awful lot in his life. He retired from the game of basketball because of the weight and the pressure of the expectations placed on his shoulders, and he couldn't catch a break. He couldn't breathe. All of these different things were going on with Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan still recognized the importance of conducting himself in an appropriate fashion, ingratiating himself with powers that be, making sure he cultivated and networked his way to gather the resources that he needed to gather. Remember, guys, this dude, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was no YouTube, there was none of that. And Michael Jordan was still Michael Jordan. Could you imagine the microscope he would be under today if he were playing and played the way that he played? Could you imagine what his life would be like? But still in all, despite all of those different times that he was living in, look at how he's climbed the charts, and he's basically paved the way for LeBron and others. That's why I always say, Kendrick, I don't say LeBron is the GOAT, not just on the basketball court, but in business, because somebody had to pave the way for you. We appreciate the champion that Bill Russell was, because Bill Russell, the kind of things he had to endure, them leaving feces at his doorstep, the racial epithets thrown in his direction, the manner in which he was treated. Bill Russell has long been gone as a player from the NBA. He still hasn't forgotten. He can't let go of what he had to endure in order to get to where he is. Michael Jordan, could you imagine, to a lesser degree than Bill Russell, of course, just imagine what he had to go through to be that black dude that was invited into your living room where mainstream America embraced him and cultivated and allowed him to cultivate them so he could ultimately soar to the heights that he soared to. That is not an easy task. And there is so much about today's players, especially in the business world, that Michael Jordan paved the way for. He, I believe to be, is somebody I believe to be one of the most underappreciated people in American history. People do not realize what he has done for us and how much gratitude we owe to him for what the NBA is, who the NBA players are, and how they resonate with us all. Michael Jordan did that for us. Magic and Bird to a lesser degree. Magic, of course, with Bird, but definitely with Michael Jordan. What he has done for us cannot be measured. It truly cannot.
It probably is the most incredible ally that these players could have, especially while they're in the bubble on their quest for social justice. And on that note, we're just talking about leaders in history, and I just want to make a note that it is the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington. So it was exactly 57 years ago on August 28th, 1963, that Martin Luther King gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial in front of 250,000 people and made his I Have a Dream speech. So somewhat of a coincidence, also really much an indication of how far we still have to go.